For this week's road test review, I've decided to bring this. Oh, not because I'm going to be reviewing a car on the track, but it is for my own protection. You see, this week's road test review is a Tesla. Because whenever I review a Tesla on AutoEV, the comment section tends to get a little bit, how shall we say, feisty. You see, Tesla owners are very, very passionate about their cars and their brand as a whole, and don't take criticism well. The problem is, since the Model 3 was launched, newer and dare I suggest some better competition has come onto the market. But thankfully Tesla haven't sat still, and they've done some fairly major changes to the Model 3. But is it any good? Is it any better than that competition? Or am I really going to need this? Welcome to this week's road test review, welcome to the newly revised Tesla Model 3, and as always, welcome to AutoEV. Now, before we get on to this week's road test review of Tesla's new Model 3, it is of course that time when I'm going to ask you to make sure you are subscribed to the AutoEV channel. Then once you've done that, press the bell button that's down below, because then that way you'll get a notification when our next video is uploaded and is gone live. Once you've watched it, if you do enjoy it, please make sure you give it a thumbs up, and of course don't forget, not that I'm sure a lot of you will forget, especially it's a Tesla, to leave us your comments down below. Let me know your thoughts on the cars review, such as Tesla's new Model 3, and of course on AutoEV channel as a whole. Now, let me take you back in time to 2019, when AutoEV was in infancy and we first drove the Model 3. And I do recall, and I'm pretty sure I said it, and I've got proof of it, that I called the Model 3 a game changer. As I said before, this is a real game-changing car. And it absolutely was, because it was the first time that an electric car really did stand comparison with sort of like internal combustion peers. You know, people who went out and ubiquitously bought BMW 320ds were there going, hang on a second, we've got a car here that's every bit as good to drive and has all the tech on it and is fully electric for the same money. And it's been a huge success. Obviously, it's a big, big seller, especially in the UK. But as I say, competition's come thick and fast from it, from the likes of BMW, Polestar, Hyundai, Volkswagen, and of course new competition from the likes of BYD with their new Seal. And they're all very, very good. Now, Tesla are a little bit like Apple. I always think they're a little bit like Apple. They're constantly evolving all the little bits. You know, they're constantly tweaking things and changing software and all this kind of stuff. But it was a lot of the kind of fundamental engineering that I felt with the Tesla Model 3 was falling way behind the competition. So have they done enough to make sure that it stays at the top of the game? But before we find out, let's remind ourselves about the Tesla Model 3. So initially, the new Model 3 will come in two versions in the UK, the lead-in rear-wheel drive car and the long-range all-wheel drive. A range-topping performance is thought to be joining them a little bit later on, however. Battery sizes remain the same at 57.5 kilowatt hours in the rear-wheel drive car and a 75 kilowatt hour one in the long-range all-wheel drive, but the WLTP ranges have increased by around 40 miles each to 344 miles and 421 miles respectively. As well as new styling, there's a lot of changes focusing on safety, as well as new materials and technology in the interior. And prices start at $39,990 for the rear-wheel drive car and $49,990 for the long range before any options are fitted. But like I said, is it going to be enough for the Tesla to move itself back up to the top spot in this area of the market? Well, of course, the only way we're going to find that out is by putting it through the road test that actual car buyers trust when it comes to choosing their next electric vehicle. And that is the AutoEV one. Now, as much as I've always enjoyed driving the Tesla Model 3, it's not been perfect. And the most probably vocal thing I've always been about the car is its styling. I've never really taken to the way the car looked. I always thought it looked a bit awkward looking and a little bit, I don't know, just it was the last thing they kind of thought about really, other than just all the tech that was inside it. Well, thankfully, it's now the first thing that you notice when you go up to the new Model 3. They have changed it, and boy have it made some differences. And actually, The small changes they've made, I think, have gone on to make a really big difference. For me, certainly. These new slim headlamps here, with the kind of DRLs running through them, they no longer come up into the top of the wings here, just seem to sort of like push the sort of like the front of the car out wide. It no longer has that odd kind of guppy mouth at the front with these kind of sort of like integrated indicators down here and front fog lights. Now that's only one thing I will criticise it for. Fog lights, you know, they've done away with them to make all this a bit smoother, and there's a reason for that which I'll go on to. However, in a country like the UK where it gets foggy quite a lot, especially now that we're into November, December time, that's a little bit of a backward step. However, that's the only thing I will say. But as I say, they've done a huge amount to the front of the car. And the reason that they've done this is to make it more aerodynamically efficient. And that's where the increase in the range comes from. Rather than changing the battery, they've made the car move through the air a lot slipperier, which increases the range by around about 40 miles on each car. So there's a big improvement from that. It's quite nice looking, in fairness. You now get this kind of ridge that runs up through the bonnet and then along into the window line here, that just drops into the kind of this headlight. There's obviously cooling down at the front now, a redesigned front splitter, and the bonnet itself is at a slightly different angle, slightly different rake to help with pedestrian safety, and the wings just kind of come up a little bit more and down. So on the whole, from the front at least, it's been a success, I think, and it's now moving up to be one of Tesla's best looking cars, I think. Inside profile, it's less noticeable that it's the new Model 3. So you still get that kind of aerodynamic, kind of almost kind of one bow design that goes sleeping down into the back there. Choice of 2 alloy wheels, 18 inches standard. These are 18s, but you do have the option of 19s. Just be aware of the fact if you move up to the 19-inch wheels, you'll sort of like impact the range a little bit. So choose what you think is more important, aesthetics or range for you. But they are redesigned, and as I say, you do get a choice of them. But it's pretty much as what went before when it comes to the side profile. As I say, you get that nice kind of shoulder line that kind of runs along there up into the boot lid. There's a nice kind of crease along the back wheel arch. There's a bit through the door and then a little bit scalloped down the side there. But it's pretty much what we've seen. You retain obviously your flush door handles, which obviously you just pop out, and of course it's got the frameless doors either way. But as I say, it's in side profile where you're least likely to notice that it's the new model. As you move around to the rear, like the front, that's where you see the big differences they've made. You still retain the sort of like the little charging port back here, the nice like neatly integrated charging port, which I have to admit I do like. Always have. I thought it was a really neat solution. You can now get these C-shaped lights with them, and they're actually in the boot lid itself. So when you open the boot, the lights disappear up with it. But thankfully, what Tesla have done is they've also put lights down in here. So if you've got your rear lights on, or you've got hazards on, and you open the boot, these will light up or flash down there. So again, nice little thought touch to safety there. The other big difference is you no longer have the kind of T-shaped Tesla badge. You've got the lettering across, which obviously a lot of manufacturers are now doing. And you've got slightly reshaped rear diffuser as well. You still get your integrated camera tucked up in there, and there's loads of cameras around the car to help with safety and the parking, but no parking sensors. Tesla have done away with parking sensors completely, which might be an issue for a lot of people. So it's purely just sort of like, you know, cameras that it relies on. It still retains the 3-box saloon, so it's not a hatchback, it is a booted saloon. But have they done enough? What do you think of the styling changes? I think they've changed it for the better, and all the little changes they've made, as I say, has gone up to make a big difference in the way the car looks. It's a much classier looking car, a much better looking car. It's still not a design classic, it's still not, you know, a Polestar 2 in my opinion, but they have made a big difference to it. But what do you think? Have you got the old model? Would this tempt you into changing? Have you never looked at Tesla before because of the styling? Is this now tempting you? As always, let me know in the comment section down below. Now, boot space remains unchanged at 425 litres, but that's still bigger than you get in the Polestar 2 and the BMW i4. Your only real limiting factor with the Tesla is the aperture. Those other two cars are hatchbacks, but like the Ioniq 6 and the BYD Seal, the Tesla's a saloon. So it's just that sort of aperture to get stuff through is your limiting factor. So if you're going to IKEA a lot, other home improvement stores are available, then you've got to just bear that in mind. But in terms of the actual boot itself, its usable capacity is huge. And of course, you still get a huge amount of underfloor storage for all your cables, and even more bags if you want. So does the AutoEV luggage set fit? Well, of course it does, because you can now get not only a large and a medium in, not only 2 carry-ons in, but also a golf bag. And that's before we've used the underfloor space or the space that's up at the front. My only real gripe with the sort of like the front compartment is you need to open it either through the screen or through the app on your phone. It'd be quite nice to just have an internal release, but I am nitpicking because when you open up the space, you can get an extra carry-on in there, and as I say, there's space underneath the boot floor to get another one of those carry-ons. So it is a hugely practical car. Okay, rear accommodation. Well, it hasn't really changed in many ways. It's still, you know, relatively good for this size of car, I would suggest. The only thing I will say is, as I've always found with the Model 3, it feels like the floor's pushed up. So when you sit straight on, you can see that my legs are kind of pushed up there. There isn't a lot of support here. And also, when it's in my driving position, that front seat, I can't get my feet underneath it at all. So that's the one thing. I always find you kind of sit on a Tesla rather than in a Tesla, if that makes sense. And that's the same in the front driving seat as well. However, in terms of space, it's all right. It's fairly decent. There's plenty of leg room. Headroom's fine for me, or if you had children in the back. If you're closer to 6 foot, you're going to be starting to sort of like it's starting to hit this kind of panoramic glass roof, which is standard and tinted and very good. It floods a load of light into the cabin. The rear seat back is slightly more reclined now, and it feels like it's slightly more sculpted as well, which is quite nice. So in terms of your back support and everything, it's good. Isofix points remain, but as I say, they're not a latch or anything. You've got to jam the prongs between the rear backrest and the squab to get the Isofix points. And the only other thing I'd say in terms of practicality for children is I'd avoid this white leather at all costs, this white pleather, because it's going to mark. I mean, you can see it's starting to get dirty as it is, and the car's, you know, barely a few weeks old. So I'd avoid that. Thankfully, you can get black as well. But it does make the car feel very open. That's the one thing I will say. Right, other changes. New thing at the back here, rear screen. Now, if you've watched our Tesla Model S Plaid review, if you haven't, I'll pop up a link up to it up there so you can go and watch it after this. It got a rear screen as well. So there's now rear passengers do have this, which is excellent. My daughter and her friend were in the Tesla Model S, and I said, watching the videos on it, was it okay? And they said absolutely fine. So for long trips with, you know, kids, this is brilliant. Now, you do get inbuilt things like Netflix, Disney, YouTube in there as well, something called Twitch, which I've no idea what that is. You need to be connected to Wi-Fi, so you'd obviously need a Wi-Fi hotspot in the car to do it. However, again, they both said it was fine for watching, you know, YouTube videos on when we had it set up for them, and they enjoyed it. You can also control the media from back here, so if you're not enjoying what Dad's listening to up at the front, if his Queen album's irritating you, you can change it to something else. You can also change the ventilation as well, so you can change fan speed up or down. You can also then change the airflow direction as well, like you do in the front, by moving your finger across it and adjust this little vent here. You can also adjust the front passenger seat. So if you need a bit more space, if no one's in the front, you can knock the seat forward, which is quite cool. You can do that in the Onyx 6 as well, but it's a button, but it's on the screen, which is good. And as well as that, you also get heated rear outer seats as well, which is controlled from there. So a really good addition to the car, especially for a family car. That's a really nice addition to it. If they do want to watch their own iPads or something, you've still got USB-C charging ports there, so that's good. And you also get, you know, in terms of storage, the rigid mat pockets on the backs of the front seats, and some good decent sized door bins which are lined with carpet so things don't rattle around in them. You also have a fold down armrest as well, where you've got 2 cup holders that's rubber lined too. Other little nice touches that I do like as well are the little kind of nicely damped coat hooks that pop out from the ceiling, and little touch sensitive map reading lights as well, so they're up there. So on the whole, a really good rear accommodation from Tesla again. The addition of the screen, the addition of just, you know, sort of like a few little tweaks here and there made it sort of like into something really quite special for the family. Just watch if you are carrying more adults than children around in terms of the foot space and the headroom when it comes to this glass roof. But other than that, really, really good interior back here. Now, a little bit like the outside of the car, all they've done is made some small changes in here, and for the better. Because the main sort of like interior of the Tesla Model 3, I think, has always been one of its one of its core pluses. I really like the interior. If you like that kind of minimalist look, it's not perfect. It never has been, and I'm going to talk about a little bit about that in a second. But the main event is obviously still the screen, you know, and that's where everything's controlled through. That's maybe one of my gripes. Whilst it is a very good screen, and it is, it's a really slick to use. You know, no matter what you want up, you know, just everything sort of like comes up here. You can put your calendar in it. You know, obviously you've got things like the arcade that you still used to have as well. You know, inbuilt Spotify, TuneIn Radio, Apple Music, all of that's there. You know, so it is, and it works. It just works. You know, you go through it. It's slick to use. It's easy to use, and you know, I do get it. But it's just that everything is controlled through it. That's my bugbear, if you like. Things like the heating and ventilation, you know, you press the corner here, and to adjust the temperature up and down, they're quite small little things to try and adjust on the move. You know, if you want to swipe up for more, there you go. You know, you want to turn things off, you know, like, you know, the heated seats, heated steering wheel. And it's just, there's a few things buried in the menus where you might want quick access to them that I just find a little bit irritating. So, for instance, the other day, we all know cars have got these kind of speed limit warnings, if you like. I was trying to figure out when I picked the car up where it was. You know, I'm going into things like safety and controls and all this kind of thing. And it's not. It's a tiny, tiny little icon at the top there where you've got to press it and it mutes the sound. It's just like, why? You know. Anyway, it's not Tesla's fault these things are, you know, have to be on cars now. But my issue is I just don't like them kind of buried in screens. I suppose it is a little bit like when you move from, say, a Samsung smartphone to an Apple. You've got to figure out where everything is, and you know, until you get used to it. So, you know, and as I say, I'm not really laying the blame at Tesla's door because everyone's going down this route. But things like changing the mirrors, you've got to go into a menu, then use the kind of rocker switches on the wheel, and the same with the steering wheel and all sort, and the wipers and stuff like that. That's my bugbear. But the screen itself is good. It's really slick. It moves quickly, and as I say, once you get used to where everything is, it's excellent. The only other one thing, and I've always said about it, I think the Tesla Model S has a better interior because it has a driver's binnacle for things like speed on it. The Model 3 has it up here, so it is quite high up in your line of sight, but it is still part of the screen and with a lot of information going on. I'd really like to have seen either put a binnacle or a head-up display. I don't know how easy it would have been or difficult it would have been to put a head-up display in the Model 3. That I'd love to have, you know, seen. That would have made a big difference to me. But as it is, it isn't. The only other thing that I also do like about the Model S now that I've driven it is the fact you can tilt the screen towards the driver. That would have been a nice thing maybe to have added in as well. So you've got a bit more angle towards you. So when you're in the car on your own, if you're adjusting things on the screen, it's a bit easier to see and get to. But anyway, it's as you know with Tesla Model 3, if you've used it, or Tesla Model Y, if you've used them up till now, there's no real differences. You know, you'll see little changes, but nothing major, and it's all works the same way. Okay, right, that's that. Other things to note, they've changed the quality of the materials in here. It's still not class best. It's still not BMW Polestar levels. It's probably Hyundai BYD levels. I would say. So if you've seen those cars, the quality of the materials they're now using are at that sort of level, which is good to see because they really needed to change that, I think. I quite like this kind of material, this kind of flock, kind of wool blend material across the strip of the dashboard. That's really quite nice. And the car now gets ambient lighting around it as well, which again at night just gives a bit of a lift to the cabin. So that's a real welcome addition as well. It's still things like just though the material on the door, the vinyl on the door, I just don't particularly like that. And also as well, it's things like the grab handles on here are nicely cushioned in here, but then on the side of the transmission tunnel where your leg rests against, it's hard. You know, so they've changed bits, but not loads of other bits. Same to get in the glove box, you've got to go into the screen to open the glove box. Why? Why has it just not got a button there that you can just press? Anyway, that's fine. What else have we got? Right, 2 wireless charging pads. Excellent, that's good. I like that. Your phone sits there. Storage is excellent, always has been. The bins in here are massive. You know, they're just this front bin here. I've got everything in there. I had a sandwich in there the other day and a bottle of water in there that's deep down in there. Plus you get your 2 cup holders, he says, which are rubber lined at the bottom with rubber grips as well, so they don't rattle around. And if you want to cover them up, you've now got this nice kind of metal finish on it rather than that horrible piano black that they used to have. So that's excellent. I really like that. Plus as well, there's more in here. Again, you can fit almost my whole arm, the full forearm in there. So storage is huge. Same thing with the door bins in the front as you got in the back. The carpet line, so things don't rattle around. So again, it's all these little things that Tesla have done. Almost like maybe they've been listening to customers and they've gone, right, well, we need to change that, we need to change that, and make it better. And it is a really nice interior in terms of its usability. Until you get to the steering wheel. Now, the steering wheel itself is changed in its design. Oh, sorry, it thinks I'm going to drive off. The steering wheel in itself has changed. So it doesn't feel as thick a rim. It's also a really nice shape. So I drive at sort of like, 2:45, and it's really nicely shaped for my hands to fall into place. And it's almost all round. There's just a tiny bit of flat bottom. But look, they've done it again. They've done away with the column stalks. So the indicators are now mounted on the steering wheel. Now this is a ridiculous situation in the UK, and I'm sure other countries as well. We've got things like roundabouts, for instance. You're crossed up, you don't know which one's which, they're on the same side. You have to take your eye off the road to do it. It's a real problem I have with this. And the issue I have, and I'll get on my soapbox a little bit about this, is a lot of manufacturers, good manufacturers, have come under the scourge of Euro NCAP. If you're out there looking to buy a car, don't take any notice of Euro NCAP as far as I'm concerned, because they've marked people like Dacia and Renault and things down for not having things like a speed limit warning sign on the dashboard, but yet Tesla's allowed to do this, which to me is a much bigger safety issue. I don't understand it. Now, I'm sorry, I know that a lot of people there's been a real division of comments when I did the Tesla Model S thing about this, and I thought maybe I just need to get used to it. I just don't. It's horrible to use. And it's the same, the transmission lever, it's gone as well. You've got to swipe the screen up and down as well. Wipers are on here and things. It's just unnecessary. It's a prime example of just because you can do it doesn't mean to say you should do it. Tesla, that's a really bad move as far as I'm concerned. It's a real safety issue because you just end up not indicating. And that to me is more of a problem than a speed limit warning sign coming up. There you go, that's my soapbox done. That being said, the driving position is very good. I still don't think the seats are all that great. What they've done is, there's a lot of cushioning in them, but there's not a lot of support at the backs of my knees. Now, whilst it's got a good range of adjustment, I can't move the squab out. So I'd rather they take less cushioning out, because I tend to sit on the car rather than in it, and maybe give me adjustable sort of like squab, for instance, where you can lengthen the length of the squab. For that, but once you kind of go over that, you kind of know where you are. It's not the best seat in the class. The BMW Polestar do it way better. Even BYD seats are nicer to sit in than the Tesla ones. But the actual driving position and the view you get out is very good because the screen is below the base of the dashboard. Even with my seat all the way down, I still have a clear view of the whole windscreen. So from that point of view of a safety thing, that's very good. But that really pisses me off. I hate this. Anyway, the rest of the interior, as I say, is pretty much as you've had with the Model 3 before. Just the little changes they've made. There's a good upstep in quality. You can feel a difference in here. Still not perfect, but it's way better than it was. That's still very good. I kind of wish they'd made a little bit more changes to it like they did with the Model S. That would have been nice to be able to tilt it a bit. Storage is excellent. Comfort's okay. You now can get ventilated seats as well. That's the other thing to say, sorry. You can get ventilated seats on the car as well. But that is just a massive backward step for me. But other than that, it's the Model 3 as we've known. Now, like I said earlier, there's no changes to the batteries that's available in the Tesla Model 3. You still get a 50 kilowatt hour battery in the single motor car, which should give a range of up to 344 miles on a WLTP cycle. And in this dual motor long range car, it's a 75 kilowatt hour battery, and that should see a range of up to 421 miles on WLTP. Now, those ranges have increased thanks to the aerodynamic efficiency. This changes the styling and such like, but do bear in mind that's also on the 18-inch wheels those figures are for. If you go to the 19-inch wheels, then that will impact on those ranges a little bit as well, so just bear that in mind. Now, charging speed, another area where Tesla has been phenomenally good at. 170 kilowatt charging speeds on the single motor car, 250 kilowatts on the all-wheel drive long range car. So again, benchmark 10 to 80%, usual stuff, just under half an hour should see you charge on that. Also, from your 7 kilowatt wall box, if you do have the smaller battery car, that's around about 9 hours to go from flat to full, with the bigger battery taking just over about 11 hours to go from flat to full. But of course, again, the big draw with Tesla, access to the supercharger network. Most reliable one out there, I would suggest. Right, driving. Now, they've also done away, as well as with the indicator stock, they've done away with the transmission stock. So it's now on this screen, which, you know, fair enough. You swipe the direction of travel you want. So you want to go backwards, you swipe back. There we go. I kind of just feel it's, I don't know, change for saying. Now that's the other thing I want to do. I want to turn that speed limit sign off, which is a tiny little thing which you can barely see. Right, and then forward like that. Okay. Right. Okay, so let me talk to you about the car. If you've got an old Model 3, if you've been driving around in a Model 3 for however long, and you jump in this car, the new one, you will immediately feel two different differences. The first thing is the refinement. They have made this a really quiet car. I mean, it was hardly a noisy car, but my God, the refinement on this new one is absolutely off the scale. Now, while they've done that, I'm sure they've done it by a few ways, but the biggest one that they talk about is the acoustic glass is now all round. It only used to be, I think, at the front, and they've put it all round, and gosh, it is a beautifully quiet car now, this Model 3, I have to say, which makes it a really pleasant car to spend time in. And not that I would say it wasn't it was a bad car, don't get me wrong, it was all right, but it could have been better, you know, as I say, other people did do it better. So that's the first thing that you'll notice, how quiet and how refined the car is. Even on a harsh surface, the car is much, much quieter than it was before. The second thing you will notice is how they've improved the chassis. And my God, how have they improved it? I mean, I've been quite a staunch critic of Tesla's chassis dynamics for quite some time now. And other people go, oh yeah, but it's really quick and it's really sporty. Doesn't matter, the spring and damper rates were never that good as far as I was concerned. In other words, when you hit a bump, a pothole or a transverse ridge, it basically, what it felt like was the springs and the dampers, they kind of ran out of answers really quickly, and it's like, oh, what do we do with all this energy? Oh, we'll just put it through the whole structure of the car, and you just feel a real jolt through the whole car. The whole structure used to shake and used to bang around, and I hated it, I really did. It was just awful. This is night and day difference. I cannot tell you how different this car feels to the old Model 3. Now, don't get me wrong, you still hit a bump, you can still feel it, but it's all underneath. So you feel the suspension and working. Now, they've done this by changing quite a lot. So they've retuned the dampers, they've retuned the springs, they've got new bushes on the car, there's new geometry set up on the car. It transforms the Model 3 as far as I'm concerned. It's an absolutely night and day difference. I cannot tell you how different this car feels now. It is superb in terms of that. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think it's shot to the best in class. I still think a BMW i4 is the driver's choice. There's a bit more adjustability in the i4. And the Polestar, I feel, just has a little bit more tactility to it. But, you know, it's above the BYD seal. I'd say it's above the Hyundai Ioniq 6 as well, quite a bit. And if Volkswagen are going to be better than this, they're going to have to pull something really trick out of the bag. Because this drives superbly now. I love the way this now drives. It is phenomenally good. Now, it depends obviously on the size of the battery, or it depends on the car you buy, how much power you have. So if you go for the rear wheel drive car, which is the smaller battery, it's 271 brake horsepower, 0 to 60 around about 6.1 seconds. So, you know, a good performing car. That's a good performance for that style of car. If you go for the all-wheel drive, which this car is, it's a dual motor, and that jumps the power up to 491 brake horsepower and knocks your 0 to 60 time down to 4.4 seconds. So quick, yeah, it's quick. And what the other thing that I feel is, it doesn't feel as out of control as the last Teslas that I drove. There feels a little bit more sort of like, you know, heft in terms of the throttle pedal, which is very good, because I always feel that they say they've got all this performance and it's just easy to feel out of control in the car. It doesn't now. You know, the old Pirelli tyre advert, power is nothing without control. They've done it. They've done it. They've made it as powerful or more powerful. They've done it, and they've pulled back on the throttle pedal, and they've made it actually. Oh, I can't tell you how joyous this feels to drive over the old car. It is a massive paragon shift from what went before. It really is. It's not perfect though. It's not perfect, and I will get on to that in a second or two. Now, you can adjust the steering like you used to be able to do in the old car. So you can set it up to be really light or really heavy. I like it quite heavy. It's almost kind of, I almost like a very unassisted kind of helm on a car. And see, look there, you're just going over those bumps. You don't even feel them through the structure. Oh, thank you, Tesla. Yeah, so the steering has a good feel to it. And maybe it's me, but the new design of wheel feels a little bit thinner. I always felt that the wheels were too thick, a bit like BMW do, they're too thick on the steering wheel. This feels about right. It's quite nice. I like this new wheel. It does fall to hand really easily, and as I said before, where I hold the steering wheel, it just seems to mould itself around my hands, which is nice. So the steering's good. The brakes, however, right now, I'm sure somebody will write to me and write in the comments and tell me I've done something wrong. I'm sure they will. But for the life of me, I can't find there's a way of adjusting these brakes. And my problem with them is this: when you come off the pedal, when you come off the accelerator pedal, the car starts to slow down on its own accord, because obviously it's got, you know, regenerative braking system on it. And then you go to the brakes, and it's different. And then when you've slowed down enough, and then you move your foot across it, it's still slowing down. So you've then got to make the speed back up. Does that make sense? It's just, I don't like the setup. I'd like to be able to switch the regen off, so that I can choose whether or not, or adjust it through maybe 3 or 4 different stages where I want it on and where I don't want it on. Now, people that like one pedal driving will get on really, really well with this. The fact that you just lift your foot off the accelerator and all of a sudden the car starts to slow down and will bring the car to a complete halt and hold it on the brakes. That's fine if you like that kind of thing. I personally don't, and as I say, it makes for a very awkward kind of dynamic drive, if you like, because as I say, you lift your foot off the brake pedal, off the accelerator, the car slows down, you apply the brakes, and you want to go back to the throttle, you kind of want the car to coast at that point, and it doesn't. It still slows down, so you take your foot off the brake, the car is still slowing down because you're not on the throttle. And it's weird because you then got to make that speed back up. So I don't think they've got that right. As I say, I don't like the fact that you've got to do it that way. Doesn't work for me at all. The power, as I say, when you put your foot down, really comes on well. It's a really nice throttle pedal action now. You can go through it. It feels much more mechanical in its setup, and as I say, it allows you to modulate your speed much, much better than before. The ride quality, as I say, is a night and day difference. As I say, it's still not absolutely perfect, but it's so different to what went before, you're not going to complain about it at all. You know, the last word in tactility probably still belongs to BMW i4, but this is very good indeed. Now, here's my bugbear. Coming up to a roundabout, I've got these stupid indicators on the steering wheel now. So I indicate because I'm turning right. Okay, we go in, and I now apply full lock to go round the roundabout, and I want to come off at the next junction, next exit, and I've got to take my eye off the road to see where my hands are, to see where the button, and it's gone up. It's a stupid system. It's a really stupid system, and I think to myself, you know, you could put up with it if you were buying, say, the Model S. Well, you shouldn't have to, but I think to myself, you could probably put up with it with the Model S, because they're going to sell so few of those in the UK, because they're left-hand drive only. This is a massive selling car in the UK, and this is a real issue. I think this is a real backward step. You know, Tesla will say it's to make things nice and easy and uncluttered behind the steering wheel for the design. If I'm being honest, and if I'm being really sort of like what I think, it's cost cutting, because it means you don't need to have a column stock and an opening there, and you can just use capacitive buttons. That's what I personally think. I think it's to cut costs, and I think they're cutting a corner on safety. And for a company that's really pushing themselves on safety these days, I think that's a really bad move by Tesla. I really do. So yeah, I've got a problem with that. How else does the rest of the car drive? Well, as I say, the driving position is good. I do like it because you get a nice view forward. The screen doesn't interrupt your view out, sort of like the base of the windscreen. You obviously you've got good visibility out the mirrors and backwards. There's enough safety kit on it in terms of camera guided stuff where you can see the cars that are all round next to you. So that's all good. I like that. The seat, I just feel, isn't quite there yet. They feel overstuffed. When you go into sort of like somebody's house and they've got one of those really plumpy big kind of sofas or chairs and you sit on, and you don't kind of sink into it, you just kind of sit on top of it. That's how it feels. Why is it beeped at me? That's how this feels. It feels like I'm sitting on the car. I want to be in it. I want to be hunkered right down. But the driving position, and I don't feel there's enough length in the squab. That's the other thing. The driving position itself, as I say, your relationship to the car and the controls is all good, and it's comfortable. There's a nice armrest here, so you can sit if you're on a motorway kind of cruise. It's not an uncomfortable car at all. It's really nice. As I say, you get a good driving position, there's good visibility. I just feel the seat needs a bit more work. Now, I have read, and whether this is right or wrong, that the new performance version of the Model 3 is going to be really quite heavily tweaked from what went before, almost kind of Model S plaid style of, they're going to really focus on it being a performance car. So therefore that might be something that gets, maybe a bit more kind of supportive seats rather than kind of these ones. And I hope it does in some respects, because, that's a quick old beast, that car. I think you need a bit more kind of support and comfort that these seats kind of offer you. So that'll be an interesting one. See, again, I'm doing a kind of U-turn. So you're going to put on full lock here. You're indicating there's a full lock on here, and the wheels, and I'm late indicating. Stupid thing. Such a big safety thing for me, that. As I say, Euro NCAP focuses on things like putting speed limit warnings on cars. Where I'm capable of knowing what the speed limit is, there's a great big sign there that tells me what the speed limit is. I know what speed I'm doing, and there's a great big sign there. But yet it'll mark it down for not having that, yet they're allowed to do that. Where's the sense? Anyway, my main point is this. This is a phenomenally good car, and it is so different to the Model 3 that's gone before. If you've got a current Model 3 and you go and drive this new one, you will be absolutely blown away by how good they've made it, how much they've changed, and for the better they've made it. This new chassis setup, this new suspension setup is absolutely phenomenal. And as I say, the refinement that now comes from it, as I say, you've got to be on the harshest of harsh surfaces before you get any sort of like noise intrusion into the cabin at all, really. Well done, Tesla, well done. This is a really big step forward for the Model 3. This is a good car. Now, recently, Tesla played a little bit of a blinder with the pricing structure of its cars, and the new Model 3 falls into that new pricing structure. The range starts with the single motor car, the 50 kilowatt hour battery, at £39,990. If you want to move up to this dual motor all-wheel drive car with a bigger 75 kilowatt hour battery, then you're going to need to find £49,990. However, bear in mind those are the headline base figures. If you want to add on a few options, which this car has, the new stealth grey paint, which is very nice, the white leather interior for instance, that pushes the price over £53,000 for this car. Now, the BYD Seal, we recently road tested that car, and their pricing policy was this: the base model Seal is a little bit more than the base model Model 3, and the top of the range Seal is a little bit less than this car under the sort of like the £49,000 bracket. But everything's standard on those cars, bar a couple of paint options, I think. So in terms of value for money, just bear that in mind when you're looking at, as I say, Tesla's kind of headline figures. The other thing to understand as well is the warranty on the Tesla isn't quite as sharp as it is on something like the Hyundai Ioniq 6 with its 7-year warranty, or of course BYD with its 6-year warranty. It's 5 years, 50,000 miles with Tesla. And 50,000 miles these days isn't a huge amount of mileage. Still, that being said, the other benefit you do have with something like the Tesla, as we keep saying, is of course access to that Tesla supercharger network, which is without doubt the best charging infrastructure that you've got out there. However, that is changing because obviously they've got these new supercharger, these new Tesla superchargers which are coming into some of the stations, and they're capable of tap to pay, contactless payment. So it's not just the exclusive use to Tesla owners that it used to be. So that sort of like advantage is kind of dwindling away a little bit. All right, let's think of the competition now, because as I say, I mentioned a few of them kind of at the start and all through this road test review. BYD Seal, it's the newest one to the market, and of course BYD are probably like Tesla were when they first started. They're a little bit of an unknown brand, but they want to make big inroads, and the Seal is an exceptionally good car. It's the best product they've launched this year, and they've had 3 product launches this year, but it is an exceptionally good car. Hyundai Ioniq 6, of course, we love the style of the Hyundai, but some people don't. They don't get quite on with the kind of retro, kind of streamliner style styling, but there's no doubt that it's a very good car. You can have it with single motor, dual motor, and of course a good warranty, and of course the dealer network gets an excellent reputation as well. BMW i4. That range started with the sort of like the two sort of like top of the range ones, the M50, the performance model, and then the eDrive 40, which we think is the pick of the range. But they're now expanding downwards with an eDrive 35, I think it is, which is, in terms of its pricing structure, is going to compete more with where Tesla is, and that's sort of like £40,000 bracket. And then of course there's our old favourite, the Polestar 2, which saw a massive change this year as they sort of like changed the powertrain, obviously from front to sort of like to rear wheel drive, or there's an all-wheel drive one, change the styling, some of the efficiencies and some of the software as well to keep it very competitive, much like Tesla has done with the Model 3. The car we've yet to drive, although we have seen it, of course, is Volkswagen's ID.7. So I'm not really sure where in terms of pricing structure it's going to come in. I would suggest it's probably going to be the later 40s into the 50s rather than the earlier 40s, given what I think Volkswagen are going to do with it. But it is a slightly bigger car as well. It's the same size in terms of market space. Sorry, there's people shooting in the background. Hopefully they're not aiming for me. Probably some Tesla owners. So in terms of the size of the market space the ID.7 is going to sit in, it is this market space, but I don't think it's going to offer the kind of value for money package that something like Tesla and BYD do. So here's what we like and what we don't like about the new Tesla Model 3. Well, we like its range and charging capability, easily accessible performance, its ease of use, the welcome changes to the styling, those improved chassis dynamics, and on the face of it, it offers good value for money in single motor guise. We don't like, well, there's the big bugbear, the removal of those indicator stalks, and whilst we're on to that subject, some of the other controls buried within that screen. The build quality, while still better, still trails its main rivals. The warranty isn't as good as Hyundai or BYD, and we're still not so keen on the brakes. Let me be very, very clear about this. In every measurable way, this is a much better car than the Tesla Model 3 it replaces. And I think that's a really important thing to say, in every measurable way, because back in 2019 when the Tesla Model 3 came onto the marketplace, we called it a game changer, and I stand by that, because here was an electric car that all of a sudden people no longer had to make excuses about. It stood head and shoulders against its contemporaries. Instead of going and buying a BMW 320d or an Audi A4 TDI S-Line, you could go electric. And the Tesla Model 3 was the car that did that. You didn't have to say it's good for an electric car. You could just say it's a good car, and it was. But of course, since then, the world has moved on, and electrification has become much more of the everyday, with other manufacturers joining the fray. And that's where we felt Tesla were starting to fall behind a little bit. Well, I'm pleased to say that with this new Model 3, they have changed everything that we felt was wrong with the old Model 3, and it is now an absolutely superb car. Is it the best in class? Right. Let me go a little bit off tangent here and try and explain something. When we last tested the Tesla Model Y against a BMW and a Volvo, we didn't rate it as highly as the other two cars. And I got into a relatively heated debate with a gentleman in our comment section who said that using facts and figures, the Tesla was the best car. And in some respects, he was right. And it's the same here. If you use facts and figures to buy a car, there is no doubt whatsoever this Tesla Model 3 is the best car in its class. However, I spent 30 years in the motor trade selling cars, 20 of which with the brand of Aston Martin, and nobody bought Aston Martins because of facts and figures. It was a very emotional purchase, and I still believe that buying a car at this level is an emotional purchase. So I'm going to leave you with this. If you are the person that buys a car on rational decision and using facts and figures, this is the best car in its class. If you buy a car with your heart rather than your head, I'd take a look at the others that's in the class as well before you sign on the dotted line. Thank you for watching another episode of AutoEV. As always, please make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Then once you've done that, press the little bell button down below, because then that way you'll get notified when our next video is uploaded and it's gone live. If you have enjoyed it, make sure you give it a thumbs up. And of course, don't forget, I'm sure you won't, especially you Tesla guys out there, you will leave us some comments down below. Let me know what your thoughts are on the cars that we review, such as Tesla's new Model 3 and the new, Tesla's Model 3 and an AutoEV channel as a whole. Do you agree with me? Do you think this is the car that is now the best in class? If you use that kind of rational thought process, would you be turned off it? Does the steering wheel thing irk you like it irks me without the indicators? Would that put you off ordering a new Model 3 if you've had the old one? Let me know in the comment section down below. Now remember, we're across all social media channels as well, so Facebook, X, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok. Please give us a follow there, because that helps us too. And if this is your first time you've joined us, or maybe you're just itching for more car reviews from the electric car world, then of course stick on the YouTube channel, because there's loads of videos out there. Not just road test reviews, but used car buying advice, twin tests, electric icons, van reviews, even some motorbikes on there as well. All that remains for me to say is thank you once again for watching. Thank you for continuing to support AutoEV. I will see you again soon.